Close your eyes and take a slow, deep breath. Feel the air fill your lungs, expanding gently, and then let it flow out, soft and effortless, like the ebb and flow of ocean waves. Allow the day's weight to slip from your shoulders, letting yourself sink into the stillness of this moment. You are about to embark on a tranquil journey, one filled with quiet discovery and soothing wonder. This story is a gentle walk through the Yucatan Peninsula, guided by the voices of two friends, Claire and Elena. Together, they wander through golden cities, ancient ruins, and peaceful cenotes, immersing themselves in the vibrant culture and serene beauty of the land. Their journey unfolds like a soft melody, designed to lull your mind into calm and your body into rest. As you read, let the rhythm of their steps become your own. Picture the cobblestone streets, the glowing facades of colonial homes, and the lush green jungles stretching endlessly under a warm sun. Imagine the soft trickle of fountains, the rustle of palm fronds in a gentle breeze, and the faint hum of distant voices blending with the call of birds. With every page, allow yourself to drift deeper into a state of ease. Each word is a step further into a landscape of stillness, where time slows and the mind finds peace. There is no need to rush. This story will carry you as gently as a hammock swaying under the shade of a ceiba tree. Should you find your thoughts wandering, let them flow, like clouds passing across a wide, open sky. There is no wrong way to follow this path. Whether you stay with Claire and Elena through every step of their journey or slip quietly into sleep, you are exactly where you need to be. Now, take another deep breath, in through your nose, slow and steady, and let it out. Feel your body relax, the tension melting away with each exhale. As you open your mind to the story ahead, let it cradle you, a gentle companion to guide you toward rest and renewal. And so it begins. Chapter 1. Claire leaned her head against the window of the plane, watching as the lush greens and blues of the Yucatan Peninsula came into view. The land below was dotted with patches of jungle and glimmering cenotes, the limestone sinkholes unique to the region. Beside her, Elena flipped through a guidebook, her lips curling into a smile as she pointed out a passage about the historic streets of Mérida. "This sounds like exactly what we need," Elena said, her voice calm and melodic. A slow stroll through the Plaza Grande, some local food, and just soaking in the atmosphere. Claire nodded, her mind already drifting to the colorful streets and colonial architecture she had read about. After months of busy schedules and little time to pause, this trip felt like a deep breath waiting to happen. When they arrived at Mérida's small airport, the warm air enveloped them like a welcoming embrace. Their luggage was quickly retrieved, and soon they were in a taxi driven by a cheerful man named Raphael. He shared tidbits about the city as they drove past vibrant facades and blooming bougainvillea. "Mérida is a city of history and celebration," Raphael said, his voice carrying a gentle pride. "You will feel its rhythm as you walk its streets." Their destination was a charming bed and breakfast tucked into a quiet neighborhood near the city center. The inn's owner, Mr. Javier, greeted them at the door with a wide smile. He was a man in his 60s, with silver-streaked hair and a kind, welcoming demeanor. "Bienvenidos," he said warmly, ushering them into a cool, airy foyer filled with the scent of fresh flowers. "You have chosen a good time to visit. The evenings here are especially lovely this time of year." He led them to their room, a spacious space with high ceilings and colorful tiles that reflected the region's aesthetic. A small balcony overlooked a courtyard garden where a stone fountain gurgled softly. "If you need anything, do not hesitate to ask," Mr. Javier said, his tone reassuring. "I recommend starting your visit with a walk to the Plaza Grande. The market is lively today, and the air will be filled with the scent of fresh tamales and panochos." After a quick unpacking and change into cooler clothes, Claire and Elena ventured out. The streets of Mérida were alive with soft colors and gentle energy. The pastel hues of the buildings blended seamlessly with the vibrant greenery spilling over balconies. As they walked, the sound of footsteps on cobblestone and the faint hum of conversation wrapped around them like a gentle song. The Plaza Grande unfolded before them, a spacious square bordered by the Catedral de San Ildefonso and the Casa de Montejo. At the center of the plaza stood a cluster of trees and benches, where locals sat chatting or feeding the pigeons. The air carried the rich aroma of roasted corn and the sweetness of churros. A vendor nearby offered cups of chilled agua de Jamaica, the tangy hibiscus tea that seemed perfect for the warm afternoon. Claire paused, taking a slow, deep breath. "This feels so different from home," she said, her voice soft. "It is like the city is alive, but in the gentlest way." Elena smiled, holding her cup of agua de Jamaica. "Exactly. It feels like everything here has its own rhythm, and we are just starting to find it." They wandered into a market tucked behind the plaza, where stalls brimmed with handmade crafts, woven hammocks, and vibrant pottery. A woman with a warm smile demonstrated the art of embroidery, her hands moving deftly as she stitched a colorful design onto a blouse. "These are traditional Yucatecan designs," she explained when Claire asked about the patterns. "Each stitch carries a little piece of our history." Claire and Elena purchased a few small items, a pair of embroidered handkerchiefs and a delicate ceramic figurine, before returning to the square. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the plaza. They found a quiet bench and sat, watching as the city's pace shifted with the fading light. A guitarist began playing a soft melody nearby, his notes weaving effortlessly into the warm evening air. Mr. Javier's recommendation to end the day with street food proved to be an excellent choice. They stopped at a cart where a woman was preparing marquesitas, crispy rolled crepes filled with cheese and caramel. The combination of sweet and savory flavors was unexpected but delightful. As they walked back to their inn under the gentle glow of the street lamps, the sounds of the city quieted to a low murmur. The cobblestones seemed to reflect the moonlight, giving the streets a soft, silvery sheen. Claire glanced at Elena and smiled. "I think this is exactly what we needed," she said quietly. "A place where everything feels calm and unhurried." Elena nodded, her expression serene. "I feel like we are finally learning how to slow down." When they returned to the bed and breakfast, Mr. Javier was sitting in the garden, reading under the light of a lantern. He looked up and greeted them with a smile. "How was your first evening in Mérida?" he asked, setting his book aside. "Perfect," Claire replied. "We feel like we are already falling into the rhythm of this place." Mr. Javier chuckled softly. "That is the magic of the Yucatan. It has a way of teaching you to appreciate the quiet beauty of the moment. Rest well tonight, amigas. Tomorrow is another day to explore." With that, Claire and Elena made their way to their room. The soft gurgling of the fountain and the cool night air from the balcony lulled them into a deep sense of relaxation. As they drifted off to sleep, the gentle hum of Mérida seemed to echo in their dreams, promising more peaceful moments to come. Chapter 2. The next morning, Claire and Elena awoke to the soft chirping of birds outside their balcony. The warm sunlight filtered through the colorful curtains, casting gentle patterns on the tiled floor. Claire stretched lazily and smiled as she noticed the faint scent of freshly brewed coffee wafting up from the garden below. "Do you think this place gets more peaceful every hour?" Claire asked as she slipped on her sandals. Elena, already seated by the balcony, smiled. "It feels like it. I could sit here all morning. But we have a lot to see." They made their way down to the courtyard, where Mr. Javier greeted them with 2 steaming cups of coffee. The breakfast table was adorned with plates of fresh fruit, bright orange papaya slices, juicy pineapple, and ripe mangoes, alongside fluffy eggs and warm tortillas. The sound of the fountain mixed with the morning breeze, creating a tranquil symphony. Birds darted among the trees, their chirping blending seamlessly with the soft gurgling of the fountain. "Today, you must visit the Catedral de San Ildefonso," Mr. Javier said, gesturing toward a small hand-drawn map on the table. "Senora Rosa leads an excellent walking tour. She is full of stories about Merida's history. She will bring the city to life for you." Thanking him, they set out for the Plaza Grande once again. The streets were quieter in the morning, with just a few vendors setting up their stalls. The bright colors of the buildings, muted yellows, soft blues, and pastel pinks, seemed to glow in the gentle sunlight, as though the city itself was waking up. The air carried a faint floral scent, mixed with the earthy aroma of freshly swept cobblestones. As they approached the cathedral, they were greeted by the sight of its towering stone facade. Its intricate carvings stood in stark contrast to the clear blue sky behind it. Outside the entrance, a petite woman with a lively expression and a wide-brimmed hat waved them over. "Bienvenidas. I am Senora Rosa," she said, her voice warm and energetic. "You have come to see the stories carved into stone. This cathedral is not just a building, it is a timeline." She began the tour with an enthusiastic explanation of the cathedral's history. "This cathedral was built on the stones of a Mayan temple," she explained, gesturing toward the foundation. "Each stone tells 2 stories, the Mayan past and the colonial present. Together, they create Merida's unique spirit." Inside, the high vaulted ceilings and cool stone walls enveloped Claire and Elena in a hushed reverence. Sunlight filtered through narrow windows, casting golden streaks across the floor. Senora Rosa pointed out carvings along the walls, each detail rich with symbolism. Claire closed her eyes for a moment, letting the quiet grandeur of the space settle over her. As they stepped back outside, Senora Rosa led them to the nearby Casa de Montejo. "This was the home of the conquistadors," she said, her voice tinged with both admiration and reflection. "Look at the detail, their coats of arms carved above the doors, symbols of power and ambition." The tour continued through narrow streets lined with shops and cafes. Brightly colored papal picado banners fluttered gently overhead, creating shifting patterns of light and shadow on the cobblestones. At one corner, a group of artisans displayed their wares, intricately painted ceramics, hand-woven textiles, and jewelry adorned with semi-precious stones. "Do you see these hammocks?" Senora Rosa asked, pausing by a stall. "They are woven with the same techniques the Mayans used centuries ago. A good hammock is not just for sleeping, it is an art form." They paused in a shaded courtyard surrounded by bougainvillea vines. Here, Senora Rosa shared stories of Merida's transformation over the years, from its ancient Mayan roots to its colonial past and modern vibrancy. Her words painted a vivid picture, weaving together history and culture as seamlessly as the threads in the hammocks. By midday, the streets had grown livelier, filled with the chatter of locals and the clatter of dishes from nearby cafes. Senora Rosa led them to a quaint cafe tucked away on a quiet street. They sat under the shade of a large tree, its branches heavy with blossoms, and ordered cochinita pibil tacos and glasses of cool, sweet horchata. The tacos, wrapped in soft tortillas and seasoned with citrus and spices, were tender and bursting with flavor. "Every bite tastes like it has history," Claire said, savoring the delicate balance of spices. Elena took a sip of her horchata and nodded. "It is like the food carries the spirit of this place, warm, vibrant, and deeply rooted." The afternoon passed in a leisurely fashion. They wandered slowly back toward their inn, stopping occasionally to admire an ornate door or a colorful mural. As they reached the Plaza Grande, the soft colors of dusk began to paint the sky. The plaza's trees cast long shadows across the cobblestones, and the sound of a distant guitar floated through the air, mingling with the laughter of children playing nearby. By the time they returned to the inn, the city's gentle rhythm had settled into their hearts. Claire and Elena exchanged contented smiles as they climbed the steps to their room. The soft chirping of crickets and the faint gurgle of the fountain below seemed to echo their peaceful mood. Mérida, they thought, was a place that taught them not just to explore, but to truly savor every moment. Chapter 3. The morning air was crisp and fragrant as Claire and Elena stepped into the courtyard of the inn. Mr. Javier stood waiting with a folded map in hand and a basket of fresh pastries. "Today, you go to Okeshmal," he said, his voice calm and steady. "It is one of our most beautiful Mayan cities, quieter than Chichen Itza, but full of wonders. Don Mateo will meet you there. He is a gentle soul and knows every stone of that place." The journey to Okeshmal began with a scenic drive through the countryside. Their driver, a soft-spoken man named Carlos, shared stories about the land as they passed rolling fields dotted with henequen plants. Occasionally, small villages appeared, their brightly painted houses standing in contrast to the earthy greens of the jungle. "This is how the Yucatan breathes," Carlos said softly, gesturing to the landscape. "It is all connected, the land, the people, and the history." When they arrived at Okeshmal, they were greeted by Don Mateo, an older man with weathered hands and kind eyes. He wore a wide-brimmed hat and carried a simple wooden walking stick. "Bienvenidos," he said warmly. "You are about to see the harmony between nature and ancient wisdom." Claire and Elena followed Don Mateo down a shaded path lined with trees. The sounds of the jungle surrounded them, the chirping of birds, the rustle of leaves, and the distant call of a howler monkey. As the trees parted, the first structure of Okeshmal came into view, the Pyramid of the Magician. Its steep steps rose dramatically against the sky, and its rounded corners gave it an otherworldly presence. Legend says this pyramid was built overnight by a dwarf who was destined to be a king, Don Mateo explained, his voice low and reverent. "It is a place of power and mystery." The group paused at the base of the pyramid, where the stones were cool and smooth to the touch. Don Mateo gestured for them to close their eyes and take a deep breath. "Feel the energy of this place," he said softly. The Mayans built not just for the gods but for the spirit of the land itself. Claire and Elena stood quietly, their senses attuned to the gentle hum of the jungle and the weight of history around them. The moment felt timeless, as if the pyramid and the jungle had been waiting for centuries to share their stories. They continued their exploration, moving to the nunnery quadrangle. Its intricate stone carvings depicted serpents, masks, and celestial symbols. Don Mateo traced a finger along one of the designs, explaining its significance. The Mayans understood the cycles of the stars, he said. They lived in balance with the heavens and the earth. The midday sun cast warm, golden light over the ruins as the group found a shaded spot to rest. Don Mateo unpacked a small bundle of tamales wrapped in banana leaves and a flask of chilled agua de Jamaica. The simplicity of the meal, paired with the serene setting, made it feel like a feast. As they ate, Don Mateo shared more stories about the Mayans' connection to the natural world. Claire and Elena listened intently, their imaginations painting vivid pictures of ancient ceremonies and bustling city life. After lunch, they visited the governor's palace, where sweeping views of the surrounding jungle stretched to the horizon. Claire leaned against a stone balustrade, letting her eyes wander over the endless green. "It feels like the jungle is alive," she said softly. "Almost like it's breathing with us." Elena nodded, her gaze fixed on the treetops. "And the ruins feel like they are a part of it. Not separate, but intertwined." Don Mateo smiled. "That is the wisdom of the Mayans. They built not to dominate but to exist in harmony." The final stop on their tour was a quiet courtyard framed by smaller temples. The air was cooler here, and the shadows of the structures stretched long across the ground. Don Mateo led them to a small altar at the center, where a single flower had been placed. "This is where people came to offer thanks," he said. "Gratitude is the foundation of all balance." Claire and Elena each took a moment of silence by the altar, their thoughts quiet and reflective. The stillness of the space seemed to echo within them, filling them with a profound sense of peace. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting soft orange hues across the ruins, it was time to leave. Don Mateo walked them back to the entrance, his pace unhurried. "You have listened well," he said with a gentle smile. "May you carry the peace of this place with you." On the drive back to Mérida, Claire and Elena sat in companionable silence, their minds replaying the day's experiences. The soft motion of the car and the fading light outside lulled them into a state of deep relaxation. When they returned to the inn, Mr. Javier greeted them with a knowing smile. "Okay, Shmal has a way of staying with you," he said. Claire nodded. "It does. I feel like we left a part of ourselves there, but it gave us something in return." As they settled into their room that evening, the stillness of the jungle and the timeless beauty of the ruins lingered in their hearts, promising restful dreams and a sense of connection that would last long after their journey. Chapter 3. The morning air was crisp and fragrant as Claire and Elena stepped into the courtyard of the inn. Mr. Javier stood waiting with a folded map in hand and a basket of fresh pastries. "Today, you go to Okeshmal," he said, his voice calm and steady. "It is one of our most beautiful Mayan cities, quieter than Chichen Itza, but full of wonders. Don Mateo will meet you there. He is a gentle soul and knows every stone of that place." The journey to Okeshmal began with a scenic drive through the countryside. Their driver, a soft-spoken man named Carlos, shared stories about the land as they passed rolling fields dotted with henequen plants. Occasionally, small villages appeared, their brightly painted houses standing in contrast to the earthy greens of the jungle. "This is how the Yucatan breathes," Carlos said softly, gesturing to the landscape. "It is all connected, the land, the people, and the history. When they arrived at Okeshmal, they were greeted by Don Mateo, an older man with weathered hands and kind eyes. He wore a wide-brimmed hat and carried a simple wooden walking stick. "Bienvenidos," he said warmly. "You are about to see the harmony between nature and ancient wisdom." Claire and Elena followed Don Mateo down a shaded path lined with trees. The sounds of the jungle surrounded them, the chirping of birds, the rustle of leaves, and the distant call of a howler monkey. As the trees parted, the first structure of Okeshmal came into view, the Pyramid of the Magician. Its steep steps rose dramatically against the sky, and its rounded corners gave it an otherworldly presence. Legend says this pyramid was built overnight by a dwarf who was destined to be a king, Don Mateo explained, his voice low and reverent. "It is a place of power and mystery." The group paused at the base of the pyramid, where the stones were cool and smooth to the touch. Don Mateo gestured for them to close their eyes and take a deep breath. "Feel the energy of this place," he said softly. "The Mayans built not just for the gods but for the spirit of the land itself." Claire and Elena stood quietly, their senses attuned to the gentle hum of the jungle and the weight of history around them. The moment felt timeless, as if the pyramid and the jungle had been waiting for centuries to share their stories. They continued their exploration, moving to the nunnery quadrangle. Its intricate stone carvings depicted serpents, masks, and celestial symbols. Don Mateo traced a finger along one of the designs, explaining its significance. "The Mayans understood the cycles of the stars," he said. "They lived in balance with the heavens and the earth." The midday sun cast warm, golden light over the ruins as the group found a shaded spot to rest. Don Mateo unpacked a small bundle of tamales wrapped in banana leaves and a flask of chilled agua de Jamaica. The simplicity of the meal, paired with the serene setting, made it feel like a feast. As they ate, Don Mateo shared more stories about the Mayans' connection to the natural world. Claire and Elena listened intently, their imaginations painting vivid pictures of ancient ceremonies and bustling city life. After lunch, they visited the governor's palace, where sweeping views of the surrounding jungle stretched to the horizon. Claire leaned against a stone balustrade, letting her eyes wander over the endless green. "It feels like the jungle is alive," she said softly. "Almost like it's breathing with us." Elena nodded, her gaze fixed on the treetops. "And the ruins feel like they are a part of it. Not separate, but intertwined." Don Mateo smiled. "That is the wisdom of the Mayans. They built not to dominate but to exist in harmony." The final stop on their tour was a quiet courtyard framed by smaller temples. The air was cooler here, and the shadows of the structures stretched long across the ground. Don Mateo led them to a small altar at the center, where a single flower had been placed. "This is where people came to offer thanks," he said. "Gratitude is the foundation of all balance." Claire and Elena each took a moment of silence by the altar, their thoughts quiet and reflective. The stillness of the space seemed to echo within them, filling them with a profound sense of peace. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting soft orange hues across the ruins, it was time to leave. Don Mateo walked them back to the entrance, his pace unhurried. "You have listened well," he said with a gentle smile. "May you carry the peace of this place with you." On the drive back to Mérida, Claire and Elena sat in companionable silence, their minds replaying the day's experiences. The soft motion of the car and the fading light outside lulled them into a state of deep relaxation. When they returned to the inn, Mr. Javier greeted them with a knowing smile. "Okay, Shmal has a way of staying with you," he said. Claire nodded. "It does. I feel like we left a part of ourselves there, but it gave us something in return." As they settled into their room that evening, the stillness of the jungle and the timeless beauty of the ruins lingered in their hearts, promising restful dreams and a sense of connection that would last long after their journey. Chapter 4. The morning dawned softly, with the gentle rustle of palm leaves outside the window. Claire and Elena awoke feeling refreshed and eager for another adventure. As they descended to the courtyard, Mr. Javier greeted them with his usual warmth, a map in hand and a suggestion for the day. "Today," he began, "you must see Valladolid. It is a town that carries both the charm of the past and the vibrant life of the present. Nearby, there are cenotes, sacred waters that are as calming as they are beautiful." Claire and Elena exchanged excited smiles, their curiosity piqued. After a light breakfast of coffee and fresh pastries, they set off in a taxi driven by a friendly local named Miguel. The road to Valladolid wound through stretches of lush greenery, small villages, and occasional glimpses of grazing cattle. The journey itself felt like an introduction to the serenity of the day ahead. When they arrived, Valladolid welcomed them with its quiet streets and brightly painted facades. The soft pinks, yellows, and blues of the buildings seemed to glow under the morning light, giving the town an ethereal charm. Children played under the shade of large ceiba trees, and the faint hum of a street musician's guitar floated through the air, blending seamlessly with the town's peaceful rhythm. Their first stop was the San Servacio Church, a towering structure with simple yet striking architecture. The weathered stone walls seemed to radiate a quiet dignity, a testament to centuries of devotion. Inside the church, the cool air and dim lighting offered a moment of reflection. Candles flickered softly in the alcoves, casting warm glows on the ornately carved wooden altar. Claire stood still, her eyes tracing the intricate details. "It feels like this place holds centuries of whispered prayers," she murmured, her voice barely breaking the silence. Elena nodded, her gaze on the stained glass windows depicting saints in vibrant hues. "There is a sense of stillness here that I cannot describe." Leaving the church, they wandered through the cobblestone streets to the Convento de San Bernardino de Siena, a historic monastery surrounded by peaceful gardens. A local guide, Senora Lapiita, met them there and shared stories about the convent's history. "This place has seen so much change," she said as they walked under an archway covered in blooming bougainvillea. "It has stood through wars, revolutions, and quiet days like today. Its walls hold all those memories." Claire and Elena explored the cloisters, pausing to admire the aged frescoes and small, weathered statues that dotted the grounds. Birds chirped softly in the gardens, adding to the serene atmosphere. After exploring the town, they took a short drive to a nearby cenote. The entrance was marked by a narrow staircase carved into the earth, leading to an underground cavern. As they descended, the air grew cooler, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed softly. The cenote opened before them like a hidden paradise, with crystal-clear water reflecting the sunlight streaming through a small opening above. Stalactites hung from the ceiling, their delicate shapes adding to the otherworldly beauty of the space. Claire and Elena dipped their feet into the water, its coolness instantly refreshing. They sat quietly, watching the ripples dance across the surface. A few locals swam gracefully, their movements barely disturbing the tranquility of the scene. "This feels like a sacred place," Claire said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena smiled, her hand trailing in the water. It is as if the earth itself is inviting us to pause and just be. They took their time entering the water, floating in the cool embrace of the cenote. The silence was profound, broken only by the occasional drop of water falling from the cave ceiling. The stillness wrapped around them like a comforting blanket, making the world outside feel distant and unimportant. After a peaceful swim, they emerged from the cenote feeling rejuvenated. A vendor nearby offered slices of fresh coconut and cups of agua de Jamaica, which they enjoyed while sitting on a stone bench shaded by a large tree. The simplicity of the snack, paired with the serenity of the surroundings, made the moment feel timeless. As the afternoon sun began to wane, they returned to Valladolid for one last stroll. The streets were bathed in the golden hues of late afternoon, and the sound of laughter and soft chatter filled the air. They visited a small artisan market where Senora La Pieta demonstrated traditional weaving techniques. Claire purchased a colorful scarf, its intricate patterns a reminder of the day's beauty. The drive back to Mérida was quiet, the car filled with the soothing hum of the engine and the fading light of the day. Claire and Elena leaned back in their seats, their thoughts drifting to the cenote's stillness and the town's gentle charm. The scents of earth and flowers lingered on their skin, carrying the day's tranquility with them. When they returned to the inn, Mr. Javier met them at the door. "How was Valladolid?" he asked, his tone curious yet knowing. "Beautiful," Elena replied. "The cenote was unlike anything I have ever seen." Mr. Javier smiled. "It is a gift from the land. A reminder to slow down and find peace in the small moments." As they settled in for the night, the images of Valladolid and the cenote lingered in their minds. The day had been a journey of quiet discovery, leaving them with a profound sense of gratitude and calm. Chapter 5. The morning began with a cool, salty breeze drifting in through the open balcony doors of their room. Claire and Elena woke to the faint sound of waves breaking gently on the shore, the promise of a seaside day filling them with excitement. Today, they would visit Acumal for a serene snorkeling adventure, a chance to immerse themselves in the marine beauty of the Yucatan. Mr. Javier greeted them in the courtyard with coffee and a small wicker basket filled with snacks. "Acumal is known as the place of the turtles," he said with a twinkle in his eye. "You may see them today if you are lucky. But even without them, the sea is as calming as a lullaby." The drive to Acumal was a sensory delight. The vibrant greens of the jungle lining the highway gave way to glimpses of the sparkling Caribbean as they drew nearer. Elena leaned out the window slightly, letting the warm air brush past her face. "It already feels like the ocean is welcoming us," she said with a smile. At the beach, Santiago was waiting for them. A tall man with a gentle demeanor, he greeted them warmly and explained the day's plan. "The reef here is alive with color and life," he said, gesturing to the calm, turquoise waters beyond. "You will see fish, coral, and if we are fortunate, the turtles. They are shy but kind." After donning their gear, Claire and Elena waded into the water, its warmth a soft embrace against their skin. The sunlight danced on the surface, casting shifting patterns that shimmered like liquid gold. As they moved farther from the shore, the sounds of the beach faded into the soft rhythm of the waves, and the world above seemed to dissolve, leaving only the serenity of the ocean. As they dipped their faces below the water, an entirely new world unfolded before them. The coral formations were breathtaking, their vivid colors and intricate structures creating a vast underwater garden. Soft purple fan corals swayed gently with the current, while brain corals sat like ancient sculptures. Tiny fish darted in and out of the coral's crevices, their movements quick and playful. Claire noticed a parrotfish nibbling on the coral, its vibrant scales flashing green and pink in the sunlight. Claire paused mid-stroke, captivated by the sight of a school of angelfish gliding effortlessly past her. Their vivid hues of bright yellow and deep blue seemed almost luminous against the coral backdrop. Elena swam beside her, raising a hand to point toward a spotted ray resting on the sandy floor below. Its movements were slow and deliberate as it pushed off, gliding gracefully to a new resting spot, its mottled skin blending seamlessly with the ocean floor. Santiago, swimming ahead, turned to signal for them to pause. He gestured toward a spot in the water, and Claire followed his gaze. Her heart leapt as she spotted a sea turtle, large and majestic, gliding serenely just a few meters away. The turtle's movements were calm and fluid, its ancient presence commanding a quiet reverence. Santiago motioned for them to remain still, respecting the turtle's space. Claire watched in awe as the turtle seemed to float effortlessly, its shell glistening with patches of green and brown. For a brief moment, the turtle turned its head, its wise eyes meeting Claire's. The moment felt sacred, a connection across worlds, fleeting but profound. As the turtle disappeared into the blue depths, Santiago led them toward a shallow area where the reef was especially vibrant. Here, the coral seemed to glow under the sunlit water, its branches and ridges teeming with life. Small, curious fish swam closer to the group, their delicate fins shimmering in the light like translucent silk. The water was so crystal clear that Claire and Elena could see every detail, the tiny, spiraling patterns on the coral, the soft grains of sand shifting on the ocean floor, and even the occasional crab scuttling between rocks. The sensation of being surrounded by this living, breathing ecosystem filled them with awe and peace. Each breath through their snorkels felt synchronized with the gentle ebb and flow of the sea. It was as though they had become part of the ocean's rhythm, the stresses of the world above dissolving with every stroke and glide. After what felt like both an instant and an eternity, Santiago guided them back to shore. Exhilarated and at peace, they emerged from the water, the warm sun drying their skin as they walked up the beach. Santiago had prepared a small picnic under the shade of a swaying palm tree. Fresh mango slices, chilled agua de Jamaica, and delicate pastries were laid out neatly on a woven mat. The colors of the fruit mirrored the vibrancy of the reef they had just explored. As they sat cross-legged on the soft sand, eating slowly, the sound of the waves provided a soothing backdrop. The cool breeze carried the faint scent of salt and seaweed, mingling with the sweetness of the fresh fruit. Claire picked up a piece of mango, savoring its juicy sweetness, and gazed back out at the water. "This feels like another world," she said softly, her voice filled with wonder. "The ocean has its own rhythm, its own peace." Elena nodded, sipping her drink. "It feels like we left everything behind for a little while. Just us and the sea." They lingered on the beach, their conversation drifting to quiet reflections on the beauty they had witnessed. Claire picked up a small, smooth shell from the sand, its pearly surface glinting in the sunlight. "A little piece of today," she said with a smile, tucking it into her bag as a keepsake. The shell felt cool in her hand, a tangible reminder of the serenity they had found in the sea. The drive back to Mérida was quiet, the hum of the car and the gentle motion lulling them into a state of deep relaxation. As they reached the inn, Mr. Javier was waiting for them by the fountain. "How was Akumal?" he asked, his voice warm with curiosity. Magical, Elena replied. We saw a turtle. It was like time slowed down. Mr. Javier nodded knowingly. The ocean teaches us patience and respect. It sounds like it shared its gifts with you today. That evening, as they sat on the balcony of their room, the sound of the waves still echoed in their minds. The memory of the turtle, the vibrant reef, and the calm expanse of the sea lingered, filling them with gratitude and a profound sense of peace. Chapter 6. The morning sun rose slowly, casting golden light over the inn's lush courtyard. Birds chirped softly from the trees, their songs blending harmoniously with the gentle burble of the fountain. Claire and Elena, still basking in the tranquility of the previous day, sipped their café on the patio as Mr. Javier approached. Today, I suggest Izamal, he said, unfolding a map on the table. The Yellow City, a place of light and history. Its golden buildings shine in the sun, and the Convento de San Antonio de Padua is a sight you will not forget. The city carries the blessings of both Mayan and colonial times. After breakfast, Claire and Elena climbed into a small taxi driven by Senora Camila, an older woman with a cheerful demeanor and a knack for storytelling. As the car wound through the countryside, Senora Camila pointed out the passing landmarks, the expansive fields, dotted with grazing cattle, and small villages where women wove hammocks on their porches. Izamal appeared on the horizon like a mirage. The city's golden-hued buildings glowed under the morning sun, their walls reflecting light in soft, inviting tones. The streets were quiet, lined with cobblestones and shaded by tall, graceful trees. Children played near the edges of the plaza, their laughter blending with the distant toll of church bells. Their first stop was the Convento de San Antonio de Padua, an impressive structure perched atop a hill overlooking the town. Claire and Elena climbed the wide stone steps, their footsteps echoing in the stillness. The convent's arched corridors were cool and quiet, the air heavy with the faint scent of incense and aged stone. A guide, Don Julio, met them near the entrance, his warm smile and gentle voice immediately putting them at ease. This place has stood for centuries, he began. It was built over a Mayan temple, blending two worlds into one. The Mayan people still hold it sacred, even as it serves as a house of worship. As they walked through the convent, Don Julio shared stories of its history. He described the efforts of the Franciscans to build a peaceful relationship with the Mayans, the intricate details of the colonial architecture, and the legends surrounding the ancient stones that formed its foundation. Claire paused at an open courtyard, where sunlight streamed through the arches, illuminating the delicate carvings on the stone pillars. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of time and the whispers of prayers that had echoed through the centuries. The trio made their way to the convent's large open atrium. From here, the view of the surrounding city was breathtaking. Izamal's golden buildings stretched out below, their roofs blending seamlessly into the horizon. Beyond the city, the green expanse of the jungle framed the scene, a reminder of the land's untamed beauty. After the convent, Claire and Elena explored Izamal's narrow streets on a horse-drawn carriage. The rhythmic clatter of hooves on cobblestones provided a soothing backdrop as they passed colorful storefronts and small workshops. Artisans displayed handmade jewelry and pottery, their smiles welcoming as the friends stopped to admire the craftsmanship. They visited the Kinich Kakmo Pyramid, a towering Mayan structure that stood in quiet contrast to the colonial architecture of the town. Elena ran her fingers along the weathered stones, marveling at the skill and dedication required to build such a monument. Climbing to the top, they were rewarded with an unparalleled view of Izamal, the city's golden glow even more striking under the midday sun. As the afternoon wore on, they stopped at a shaded cafe near the plaza, where a kind woman named Señora Margarita served them chilled horchata and plates of panuchos topped with vibrant, fresh ingredients. The flavors were rich yet comforting, a perfect reflection of Izamal's charm. Before leaving, they returned to the convent one last time. The late afternoon sun bathed the arches in a soft amber light, and a few locals had gathered in quiet prayer. Claire and Elena sat on a stone bench near the courtyard, letting the peace of the place wash over them. "This city feels alive in a different way," Elena said softly. "It carries its history with pride but welcomes you as if you've always belonged here." Claire nodded. "It's like stepping into a story, one that keeps unfolding with every turn." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the cobblestones, Señora Camila drove them back toward Mérida. The road was quiet, the golden light of Izamal still lingering in their minds. That evening, back at the inn, Mr. Javier welcomed them warmly. "How was Izamal?" he asked, his eyes twinkling with curiosity. "Incredible," Claire replied. "The convent, the pyramid, the people, everything felt like a gift." Mr. Javier nodded knowingly. "Izamal has a way of making you feel at home. It is a place that does not rush but invites you to stay and listen." As they prepared for bed, the memories of the day settled over them like a soft blanket. The glow of Izamal, the quiet strength of the convent, and the timeless beauty of the pyramid filled their thoughts, carrying them gently into restful sleep. Chapter 7. The morning arrived with a gentle hush, as if the world outside were holding its breath. Golden light streamed through the delicate curtains, painting soft patterns across the tiled floor of Claire and Elena's room. It was their final day in the Yucatan, and the weight of leaving hung gently in the air, balanced by the gratitude they felt for their journey. Mr. Javier greeted them warmly in the courtyard, as he had every morning. A pot of coffee steamed on the table, alongside a plate of freshly baked bolillos. "Good morning, amigas," he said, his smile kind. "Today, you take home the stories you have gathered. But first, a little more of Mérida to hold in your hearts." After breakfast, they set out for a final walk through the Plaza Grande. The streets were quiet, the early hour casting long shadows on the pastel facades of the buildings. A soft breeze carried the scent of blossoms and the faint hum of a street musician practicing in the distance. The plaza's ancient trees stood like guardians, their branches providing shade to those seated on the white wrought iron benches. As they wandered, they stopped to admire the Catedral de San Ildefonso one last time. The morning light gave the stone walls a golden glow, emphasizing the intricate carvings that had captivated them on their first day. "It feels different now," Claire said softly. "Familiar, but still full of wonder." Elena nodded, running her fingers along the smooth surface of the stone. "It's like the city has shared a piece of itself with us." They meandered through the market, where vendors were beginning to set up their stalls. The vibrant colors of woven textiles, hand-painted ceramics, and fresh produce seemed even more vivid against the morning light. A friendly vendor, whom they recognized from an earlier visit, waved them over. "You return," he exclaimed with a grin. "Today, I have something special for you." He presented them with two small, delicately painted tiles, each depicting a scene of Merida's iconic streets. "A gift to remember us by." Claire and Elena thanked him warmly, their hearts full from the simple act of kindness. As they walked away, Claire turned the tile over in her hands, feeling its cool, smooth surface. "I'll treasure this," she said. "It's like a little piece of here to take home." Their final stop was the garden at the inn. Mr. Javier had promised them a quiet send-off, and the courtyard was prepared beautifully. A small table was set with delicate glasses of agua de Jamaica and a bowl of tropical fruit. The soft murmur of the fountain and the rustle of palm fronds created a serene ambience. As they sat, Mr. Javier joined them, holding a book with a well-worn leather cover. "Before you leave," he began, "I want to share a story about Merida. This city, you see, is a place of threads, woven from the past, the present, and the dreams of those who visit." His voice carried the rhythm of someone who had told this story many times, yet still found joy in its telling. He spoke of the Mayan people who had lived on this land for centuries, their traditions and wisdom deeply intertwined with the stones of the city. He told of the Spanish settlers, their efforts to shape a new home blending with the culture already here. And he spoke of travelers like Claire and Elena, whose footsteps added to the tapestry of Merida's history. When he finished, there was a quiet stillness. Claire and Elena felt the weight of his words settle in their hearts. "Thank you," Elena said, her voice soft. "This place has given us so much more than we could have imagined." Mr. Javier smiled. "And you have given something in return. Merida is a little different now, because you were here." The time to leave came too soon, yet felt right. Mr. Javier helped them load their bags into the taxi, his steady hands and kind smile offering reassurance. "You will return one day," he said confidently. "The Yucatan has a way of calling people back." The drive to the airport was quiet, the landscape passing by in a blur of greens and blues. Claire and Elena exchanged occasional glances, their thoughts lingering on the days they had spent here. The memories felt vivid, like a dream they could still touch. As the plane lifted into the sky, Claire looked out the window, watching as the land they had come to love grew smaller and smaller. "It's strange," she said, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. "I feel like we're not really leaving. Like a part of us will always be here." Elena reached over, resting her hand on Claire's. "And a part of here will always be with us." They sat in comfortable silence, the steady hum of the plane lulling them into peaceful reflection. The stories, the colors, the sounds of the Yucatan played gently in their minds, wrapping around them like a soft, familiar blanket. By the time sleep overtook them, they were already dreaming of the golden light of Merida and the timeless beauty of its people and places, promising they would return one day to continue their story. The end.